Like, Mara, are you kidding? Like, you're going to walk away from the thing that like puts you on the map? That people recognize you for? Do you know how hard it is to like carve out that piece of notoriety, recognition, whatever it's been? Like, obviously it's made you Mara Hoffman, and now you're about to say that you're not gonna like participate in that way. Well, what do you have anymore, Mara? Like, what are you? And like, this is the part that has to be met. And it's almost like essential then that I meet this.
We're Elisa and Lily, the mother-daughter creators of StyleLikeU. And after interviewing hundreds of trailblazing individuals for our channel, we've been inspired to join the conversation and ask,
what would the world look like if everyone was told from the moment they were born, don't change a thing? What a different world that would be.
This episode of Don't Change a Thing is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is entirely online and is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to meet your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist, and you can change therapists for no additional charge.
If you're thinking about starting therapy, which I highly recommend, give BetterHelp a try. Visit betterhelp.com/don'tchange today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/don'tchange. Welcome everyone back to another episode of Don't Change a Thing. So our guest today is Mara Hoffman, who is my number one favorite fashion designer, whose clothing I am wearing right now, head to toe, literally. Well, no, not toe, head to ankle. The reason I love her so much is that she's done a really good job, like, being at the forefront of making her line more inclusive. And I know it's been a big challenge for her, but it's something that not that many designers really do, sadly, but also excitingly. She is closing her line after 24 years. She announced that at the end of May. She shared a little bit about why she's doing that and how it's about remaining true to herself and honoring where she's at right now. We both, in our own ways, have grappled with the ways that the fashion industry can be a really difficult place to have integrity and to care about the planet and people and represent all people. And I think she's done an amazing job attempting to be a company that is a force for change in the industry. And I've admired that as a consumer. And I am very curious to hear also and unpack more about what her experience has been in this industry as well.
Can't wait to hear what she has to say about it.
Okay, so we are here today with the legendary Mara Hoffman, who is my absolute favorite clothing designer in the entire world. When she announced that she was closing her brand last month, I actually cried. I've been in a manic state trying to get as much as I can during her final closing sample sale. I brought an entire suitcase from New York of your stuff back with me last week, or yesterday, the other day. And yeah, we're just so honored to have you here to share more about where you're at in your journey and to hear everything that's going on.
Thank you so much for having me. I already feel like this wave of emotion just hearing that. And it's been, I think, one of the most extraordinary things of this time over this past month is the stories of connectedness from people. I've been, making light of it, not light, but a joke that it's been like being at my own funeral and hearing the things that people would want to express, but you never get to hear those things. And it's been so deeply moving and probably the most beautiful gift I could have ever received after feeling a completion of this project is to know what it's meant to the people that have been participating with me on all these levels that, so many people I don't know and the people that I do know, but to receive the feedback. I can't imagine, any artist not wanting to receive that in their lifetime.
When you put so much soul and creative expression into your clothing and so much of your life force, and as you have done, and it's so clear that you've done that, it's such an expression of you.
I also just want to add really quickly that being at the sample sale in New York was just such a beautiful experience to see all of the kinds of people that wear your clothing. And it's so rare for a designer of your, making such quality pieces to be helping like so many people feel so seen and like represented by you, and the amount of diversity in the room, you know, in all ways, and, you know, body type especially, like, is just so moving to see.
Thank you. Yeah, the dressing rooms are their own wild, gorgeous kind of, I feel it very New York City kind of experience. And it's funny because like a year ago, and just like leading up to this decision, it's been absolutely the hardest thing I've ever had to do is land at this decision. And this wasn't something that I was chewing on for 6 months. This is something I have been in the throes of it. Probably 6 months ago was when I gained the landed courage or knew the clarity to do what I had to do. So the years leading up to this, the fight was still locked in of like, I'm not going to give up. Like, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to, like, where there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to keep doing this. But there were so many clenched fists to the sky going, what the fuck? Can you just help me? Please help me with the, like, why does this have to be so hard? Like, can I get a little support here? Meanwhile, knowing that I'm constantly supported and have a very clear, direct line with the support, you know, seen and unseen. It's always been by my side. But during these years, when the business portion of it, or trying to work from the inside out in a system that's not built for the type of work that we've been trying to do on the inside to really succeed. It's built on a very old model that kind of suppresses that or doesn't allow for that to be supported in the way it needs to have this be the mainstream of fashion, right? Anyways, a year ago in the dressing room in New York, I remember just feeling like it was all the same beauty and all the same gorgeous representation of women, you know, everyone in there, so many beautiful, different, again, like so many different women, but feeling this just like, oh God, exhaustion. And then this year, knowing that this was it, and being in that dressing room, like you had to pull me out. Like I stationed myself in that dressing room just to be in the touch of it. It was something that I always loved, because I think about, you know, a year ago being like, but the years before that, it was the same. Like, let me tie that. Like, oh, here, this is how you wear it. Come over here. Let me. Oh, look at yourself. You know, that's been one of my most favorite thing about this job that I've had, this gorgeous job, is to stand behind someone looking at themselves in the mirror and helping to create that little click, even if it's so subtle or what it is, where you just see this up-leveling of yourself. And clothes, as we all, you know, the three of us can testify very clearly, are such important instruments of our transformation and the way that one of the paths towards seeing ourselves in a light that is love.
And as singular, and as completely unique.
Absolutely.
You're one of a kind. Like, you're truly one of a kind, and your clothing is truly one of a kind.
Thank you.
And what's so beautiful about that, I think in what you're seeing with the amazing diversity and the beauty of all of the different types of people that have loved it, is just that how, like, when you are really your true self, how universal that is at the same time, you know, that so many different people can connect and relate when you're true to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and I think it's taken years to understand that and to come into my own, and I think come into my own maturity in a way to understand that this is like the special sauce. Like, this is the thing that makes it translate the way that it has. And I think it's been a little bit scary, also not a lot, I'm going to stick to a little, scary, and again, in this same reception of all this love and gratitude for people and their connectedness to the material and what the clothes have meant to them in their lives, or how it helped them. So many gorgeous stories of body is changing through illness or through hard life experience, and that the clothes bringing them back home in themselves and back to beauty and recognition, and like that was a step towards an inner recovery. Like these, oh my God, like you can't, what? And so a part of me is like, I can't believe I'm not gonna do this exactly like this now. Like what? Like a little bit of, what are you doing, Mara? Like how will you connect ever? And I think that this is where my own internal up-leveling on a spiritual and self-love piece has to step in and say, how much do you trust yourself? How much do you trust, Mara, in the authenticity of who you are, that it won't be limited to the material? And you just have to, you have to see.
But you can't grip.
You can't. And I used to walk around when I felt like the business was doing amazing, and there were these, it was just like in such a gorgeous flow. And I used to walk around New York and be in these, I do this a lot, but this like conversation, I talk to myself a ton, and a lot in prayer and gratitude and just and and I was in one of those zones, and it would come up a few times then when I would get hit with this feeling of like, wow, this is so extraordinary, but I wonder if I'll ever have the courage to see who I am without it.
Oh, wow.
And it would sort of like lock at me, because how would I ever leave it? Because it was so beautiful and good. And like when you find your thing, you don't leave your thing, right? And so part of the, I am a big proponent of like, love the discomfort. Thank you. Because if I had been a little bit cozier in this, a little bit more comfortable, I'll never have the opportunity to know who I am in different form. And this is a really hard form to leave, because it's so, I have an in to like women. What an in. Are you kidding me? I worship women. Like, women are the key out of the mess we're in right now. When we talk about any kind of environmental or the situation we're in, it's through the, like, heal the women.
Right.
Heal the women, heal the planet. Like, this is how we do this. I mean, I don't need to simplify that. And
no, it's
I
so
get
true.
It,
I mean,
that there's so much more to be said on this. But
look at violence, look at war.
Like, through the women. And so it brings up an insecurity, and it brings up a little bit of like, well, but I have to do this thing. It's like wilder and louder than anything else, and it's totally unknown.
Yeah, and trusting that you'll find your way to connect to women, and
I have to. And maybe it won't be as big.
And,
or maybe it won't be as like global, but I actually don't know. I'm so curious to see like what, and maybe I'll sit here in 5 years and go, yeah, you know what? It was always supposed to be the clothes. It was always through the material. Like, I was put on this earth to my work in reciprocity, and my work in contribution and healing was always meant to be through the material.
Okay, so we're going to circle back to
that.
everything that we just started to talk about. But before we do that, do you mind sharing a little bit more about your style and maybe what you're wearing right now, and like what you think it says about this moment that you're in?
I've been kind of not laughing, but this is a new little moment, but not really new. I mean, it's all part of my language. But I've been feeling like, what are the names of the women on pirate ships? That I've got a little bit of a pirate kind of. I don't know
what are the names?
A wench? Is that horrible?
That is unbelievable.
I
mean, that is misogyny. Like,
it's the worst.
2.0.
I'm a kept woman on a pirate ship today. No, I mean,
I do kind of see that with the hair and everything that I have to say.
Right, or like cover of a romance novel, like where
I see that.
I'm like waiting for a big buff. I don't know. Yeah, it's a very romantic kind of ultra femme kind of moment, which is, I think it just represents sort of my multifaceted relationship to dress, because as I were telling you both earlier, I'm very uniform, and so if you do run into me in a very normal average day of my life, I'm probably wearing the same 3 pieces of clothing every single day. And it tends to be like a button down in a pair of vintage Levi's, or my Monty pants.
Monty's
Named after who?
Named after my beautiful father, Mara Hoffman, who recently passed, which has been its own trip and part of this transformational period, all of it happening at once. My everyday style is a little bit more on the masculine side, if we're even going to gender anything, right? Because what is that anyways? I think more on a traditional just...
Why do you think?
Because I spend and I have historically spent so much of my creative and my energy building in design. And so it's been I'm in the creation experience of it that I have to wear it less. But for opportunities or invitations to show up to something, I like to play with the clothes that I have. Like today, I came out of a suitcase. I'm visiting LA from New York. And so I just brought some, like whatever kind of I had around. And this morning I hadn't put much thought to it. I was like, well, I kind of have to like show up for this thing for these ladies and not wear my button down. I have my button down in the bag if you want me to put it on. It speaks to the fabrics that I really love. I'm a big lover of natural fibers and lightweight feeling things and ease. I think I've always had a sort of a sense of like beach dressing. My favorite place is being in warm weather, or favorite place to be is in warm weather spots. So I like to dress for that.
And I know we were talking off camera a little bit about your like
décolleté. Is it a décolleté, or is that
your chest area?
chest?
And like, have you always sort of been embracing of that and like
I
can you
love
talk
this.
about that?
Yes, I love this part of my body, and I'm I love my body and I love my breasts. I have very small breasts, so it's I've been able to. Anybody can do this, but
Because we have similar chests and similar breast size, and I've learned to love this part of my body. But it came on our very first StyleLikeU shoot. Our very first shoot, closet shoot, when we were interviewing someone, the very first person, and she starts to talk about how she loves this part of her body, and she looks just like us.
Yeah.
And how she's never, she exaggerates it. She wears, and that was it for me. That was like, that was it. I was like, oh my God, every shirt, Lily's like, button your shirt. And I'm like, no.
Well, I don't say button your shirt just cause it's just that the boob sometimes makes an appearance, in a
Same
meeting.
with mine. I feel like this has always been like a go-to spot for me since thinking back, I think maybe it had something to do with ballet. I grew up dancing, and so I remember looking in the mirror in a leotard, and we would pull down our leotard like really low, and we'd put safety pins in them. And I remember I used to try and like safety pin it as like this deep V plunge, and like cut the backs of my leotard as low as I could go. So I've always had a deep connect to my body and to my skin, and I think that's been my way out to connect also to other people's bodies and have such a love for them and like an ease with them. Like I am very comfortable with bodies. And
why you were so easeful with it being so inclusive in your clothing, and
because it's just all like there's nothing that sort of repels me or turns me away from them. It's more the opposite. I'm just so drawn to them.
It's so unusual. Like, to be honestly, like when we started What's Underneath, and one of the reasons why we started it is because no one is comfortable in their body. Like it's almost like
it would be not true for me to say that I don't ever have discomfort or insecurity or a critic that shows up around aspects of my body or parts that I have had to work on a emotional and spiritual and psychological level around self-image, because I absolutely have. And I feel like I've had to learn one of what was probably getting me to where we are right now, even making the decision with the business, started years ago probably during the pandemic, where, I've been very committed to my inner work for a very long time. So it's been in works through all different ways, modalities. I've always been a big psychedelics person, a mover, a yogi, dancer, meditator, love of all the mystical things, all the things, right?
Yeah. I share that with you.
So, but during the pandemic, we relocated into the woods, which was an incredible moment for my family and for myself. And I think it was a big catalyst for where we are right now in this decision, because I spent so much of my time in building this relationship and conversation. I've spoken to this a lot with the trees where I live, and started becoming more comfortable in being in conversation with them. And what happened through that dialoguing of just going out on my walks and speaking to them, to talking to them about whatever I was going through, or bringing them into the solving of something that I was working on, and letting nature kind of actually co-create with me, and bringing nature into every part of my life, as opposed to just keeping it in this separate way that you go and you visit it, as opposed to bringing it into hey, trees, work on the business with me, work on my life with me.
And what would happen? Like, what's
well,
the actual
I would just
experience?
sort of understand. I'd be able to kind of, it's almost like being in so through my vocalizing of it, through my conversation with them, I would be given kind of information. I feel like the information would come through me, like either a sense of well-being or a sense of clarity around something and understanding. It predominantly feels like that you're being hugged by like this gorgeous, loving life force that just like wants you to win, and is so on your side, and is just so rooting for you in the most non-judgmental form of anything you could ever meet.
And literally rooting, because they're like
rooting
they literally
for
are
you.
the deepest rooted.
Like they want us to win. They're like, we are here. Like, come on. And so I think there's also a sense of like, come on you, Mara, but come on you, humanity, like get with us. We're here, like nature's here to like help you solve the problem.
Which is, I mean, there's so much to say about this. Like personally, what I've been working on in myself is like feet on the ground, feet on the ground, and just release and relax. And then I feel my feet on the ground when I'm like walking or, just in life, but in nature, and walking every morning. And also just like leaning back into the energy that's all around us. Like instead of what I've done most of my life, which is like running for my life, or like so up here, like just not on the ground, and not feeling that sense of security of everything around me, and that sort of permanent love that we all can experience, that's all around us, that's beyond any of the trauma or difficult experiences we've had in life. There is this like greater force. Is that what you're saying?
It's similar to that. I mean, that's a beautiful way to experience it, but yeah, absolutely.
Like
however
really
you
in.
get there. I think that you have to lean in. You have to surrender some part of your brain to the, analytical or what's what of it. Like you've got to leave part of that behind in order to expand. The relationship, what the trees brought me to is, it was like one of the biggest gifts through cultivating that relationship was this almost introduction that they made back to myself and back to the way that I spoke to myself. The introduction was to this new, kinder gentleness in which I would speak to myself. And again, there's so much but there's so much talk about inner child work and how we speak to our inner child and all these parts, and that I think sometimes we all can become exhausted by the collective language we're using, especially in the wellness and this sort of spiritual realm. You're almost like, oh my God. I mean, I roll my eyes at myself.
Yeah.
But in this situation, why I share it is because I watched so much of my life transform from speaking to myself differently. I started to communicate to Marita, little version of me, in this really loving language. Like my mother used to always say to me, Mara, treat yourself the way you would treat your daughter. Treat yourself the way you would treat your child. And okay, I am a parent of a 13-year-old, and sometimes I'm not the proudest of the way that I speak to my kid in moments of frustration where I'm like, oh, like
right.
I think we can all relate to that there are moments where you're like, oh God, I wish I had handled that with more patience or compassion, or just like being a little bit cooler. Like I lost my cool. But what she was saying is like, show up in that level of care and love, and life changes from that place. And it took me into my 40s, so just saying, to understand how essential that was, the relationship I had with like the new voice, the new kindness to her.
Wait, I have to say something. No. Okay, and then you bow down, like a bow down to your mother.
100
Because I just have to say that out loud, and then Lily, go ahead. But like, because honestly, not only is that so apparent in how you've been able to listen to your inner voice and make these changes and surrender, and all the beauty of that, and not grip on and not be in fear, which is so major. But even like something like loving this part of your body in this society and not struggling with that is so major. So bow down to your mother.
Bow down to her for sure. She's the best.
Yeah.
So is there like a primary story that you were, or thing you were saying to yourself that was unkind before? Like what was the...
Like the critic was sort of easier, like out of check, where like whatever the thing would have been, if it could have been like around, is this thing good enough? Like within my work or within what I would see in the mirror, like that voice, the critic could have taken the driver's seat easily during that time. So
what would that look like?
Feeling like self-judgment towards a part of my body that I wasn't feeling. I feel a little like sensitive or self-conscious to even sharing this part of a conversation, because I understand and recognize the body that I walk around in this world with, and I recognize the currency that society has placed on skinniness and whiteness and what that has meant and the harm that it's done. I get it. And so even in a situation of this, being like, well, when I'd look in the mirror and I'd have, fixate on a part of my body or my thighs or this, but then to come into a place of what that meant, to transform it and call it what it was, that it didn't belong to me, that it belonged to something that I was experiencing outside of myself societally, of what I had been like shown and taught since the moment I could receive information, was the opposite of love yourself, Mara, love yourself wholly and fully. That's not what the world tells us. That's not what the world tells women from, when we start collecting and receiving the messages. We're told the exact opposite of that. And it takes immense focus and work and the dedication to focusing in on the truth and a different narrative that isn't the one that's going to keep us in shame and keep us like buying the shit, to keep up with the shame of it. And so I think that language and the voice from me to me was such a part of my transformation that led me to do what I'm able to do right now, like what we're in the process of letting go of. Because a huge part of this letting go that I had to work with was around my identity in such a major way. Like like, who am I without it? Like, Mara, are you kidding? Like, you're going to walk away from the thing that like puts you on the map, that people like recognize you for? Do you know how hard it is to like carve out that piece of notoriety, recognition, whatever it's been? Like, obviously it's not, that's made you Mara Hoffman. And now you're about to say that you're not going to like participate in that way. And do you disappear? Do you become irrelevant? Do you just like go, what do you have anymore, Mara? Like, what are you? And like, this is the part that has to be met. And it's almost like essential then that I meet this.
Okay, wait.
Why is it essential?
No. Wait, me. I got it.
I love you guys.
So can you take us back a little bit to like the...
Wait, can we just hear why it's essential?
No, we're going to get back to why it's essential. Hold on. Can you take us back to like what has been the tear inside of you, like what the journey to this decision, and like what the struggle was that led to it? And
I mean, so for those that aren't aware, the brand is 24 years old, and about a decade ago is when we made the big transition towards a sustainable framework within our brand, within a greater fashion industry. And I am so deeply proud of that work that we've done over this past decade. It's been probably some of the most, to this point in my life, within, as far as a career goes, and in external, outside of my family and my son and my husband and this part, and my self-love work. This has been the most important part, I think, has been being able to role model that transformation. There's a theme in all of this, right? Like, and knowing the part of, not in like this egoic, like I'm here to be a role model, but I get that I actually am in some ways, and doing that means you're going to do things before people. And you're going to walk across a bridge before people even know that there is a bridge, right? And it's like, and it's not going to be popular. And you kind of have to do the not popular thing in order to help other people when it's their turn to do it. And I've always felt that. So even in the sustainability part, and this isn't like this selfless, like, I did this for everyone else to do this. No, I did this because I was so deeply grappling with my own discomfort of my participation in a highly harmful industry, and what that meant and what it meant to my kid. And so maybe in a very self-centered way was like the first like seed of this, like, yuck. I don't want my name on, like, what is this? And what is my kid going to do? All the parts of that, right? So that was the, like the first catalyst was the big yuck, like love a yuck, because it's gonna, if you're smart about it and you pay attention to it and you don't tell it to shut up and go away, you say, tell me more, it's gonna show you where to go, right? We did that work, or we dedicated everything to that work. I'm so grateful for that work. A lot of other brands, a lot of people needed to see it get done. A lot of people needed to know it wasn't impossible, and that there's the ability, it's possible to change. It is possible to do better. It is possible to be less harmful and contribute to like a planetary beginning of a recovery. It's possible.
We can obviously personally relate to a lot of this. I mean, everything that you're going through.
We could use the same thing that you could probably
all
have
of the conflicts. We relate to all
of
it.
And everybody's question is, what's next? And it's such an interesting temperature check on our culture. And it's not a blaming, or it's not like, I get it, because we're all so just trained to not unplug from the system and not unplug from the current that we all think we're going to die without. Like, what's next tomorrow? Yeah, it's it. Like, you're pulling out of the outlet. Like, wait, no. You must already have something lined up. Are you going somewhere else? Are you going to design for someone else? Or what's next? And it sort of speaks to why we're not well. Like, exactly why I have to do this.
Because it's so true. It's really so profound. Because the outlet that we're plugging into is outside of ourselves.
It's based It is scarcity.
You're
It
plugging
is
in
fear.
word.
It's like it's the whole thing of like, it's the identity piece. It's all of it. Like it's like, I don't know. It's like the opposite of nature.
Yeah.
It's the
Who
thing
are
that's
we?
keeping us separate from it.
We're on a hamster wheel.
And that we think that, this is the human experience is where are you going to work next? What's your next work? What's your next thing?
It's like we live in a false, like we live in this algorithm, in this construct that man has made. We live in this construct that is inhumane and filled with layers and layers and endless amounts of problems, and is so, as you said, antithetical to our nature and to our health and our well-being.
And it doesn't it's like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So I'm also, because I think that there's, back to the gorgeous experiences of all these incredible people who have come forth to share with me what it's meant to them to participate in, my capitalistic enterprise.
There are wonderful things that come from
There
it
is
too.
still magic and beauty that can happen. I'm not such an extremist. I'm not a purist in any way. I never will be.
Right.
So I see the nuance and like,
and there's just no perfect way to exist within.
There isn't. And this is just so personally my experience of it. Like, I don't think that this is the way for every single person. Like, it would be impossible for me to prescribe that to the entirety. It's just what I'm coming to right now after 47 years of being in this body and experiencing life in the way that I have. And I think also for me, there is a actual weight now that the more sensitive and aware of myself I've become, the more sensitive and aware I've become of everything around me, including the material. And so when I look at even the beautiful experience of a sample sale for people to share that, it's like all these truths happening at the same time in that dressing room are all of these beautiful moments of beautiful human beings up-leveling in some way through their experience of beauty in themselves. And then right outside of that curtain are thousands and thousands of units of clothing, right? Clothing that takes up a weight. It doesn't matter to me at this point how well and how thoughtful and intentional and researched and strategic it was to make things in the right way. Like, it's still the volume and it's still the things of it. Like, we're still in a things-driven experience. And look, I love things. Like, I'm not going to go and like denounce all of my things. God, I love them. But I've made so many things personally. I've contributed a lot of things. And now I just want to feel for a moment what it feels like to not be manufacturing, to not be making so many things.
Yeah. This episode of Don't Change a Thing is brought to you by BetterHelp. So, Mom, what's been one big win that you've been celebrating this year in therapy?
The incredible relief of understanding that every single thing that has happened to you and everything in your life and everyone in your life is there for a reason, is a teacher, is there to help you grow, that even the harder parts and the harder things are even more so there to help you grow. Overall, it's all there for you to become a happier, more free and whole person.
Amen.
If you're thinking about starting therapy, which I highly recommend, give BetterHelp a try.
BetterHelp is entirely online and is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to meet your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist. And you can change therapists for no additional charge.
Visit BetterHelp.com/don'tchange today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/don'tchange. So what was like the internal, was there like a rock bottom? Was there like what was the little battle going on? Like, how many years was it going on?
I feel like the pandemic was really gnarly and we were just like in it. Who wasn't? I mean, unless you like launched a sweatsuit brand and you just killed it, I guess. And there, if you're making cars, you killed it. There were some people killing it.
Pajamas.
People weren't buying beautiful things so much.
No, so that was just this like, I think it was this beginning of a real hard look at at the struggle of it. And I'm not sure if it ever fully recovered itself from that. And I think I just got so too tired of, I joke that I was always listening to like the Scarcity mixtape. And like it had these same 5 songs on, and it was like, we gotta cut the budget. It was like song 1, and then it's like, we don't have enough money, song 2. And it was like, we're not gonna afford that one, song 3. And I was like, I'm like, wait a minute.
That was like the soundtrack of your life.
Well, in that capacity,
Yeah.
but it was such in contrast to so much of the other part of this experience, which was working with this team. I like live for my teams, love my team, working with such devoted, committed people. It's been one of the most beautiful parts of this is working with people and having these incredible teams. So here we are, like putting on that. It's like, oh, we're going to listen to the tape again. Right. And even my own expansion and evolution of who I am as a human being, I'm like, this tape is not it. Like, how am I still listening to this? But like, I'm not that.
Right.
And
you're not what?
I'm not scarcity. I'm not lack. I don't have enough. I'm the opposite of that. I'm like,
you're the tree.
I'm full. I'm this. And here I am showing up to my business and hearing this thing play.
We're familiar with the tape.
We're very familiar.
Right. And I was like,
we have the same album.
I got to throw this tape out the window. And if it takes doing this, I got to do something because it's not this. And then the weight of it, it's like, okay, so there's that part, but then there's also the continual growth of the reckoning of the stuff, the weight of the things, and the more of it, and not, and maybe it would have felt different if it was just like blowing out of the water, and I was just like the mixtape didn't exist, and it was just in abundance all the time. That I would not. I'm sure we wouldn't be here talking about this because I wouldn't have been able to leave the coziness.
Right.
That.
Well, I mean, do you think that it's what is your feeling about the making of the things, like the constant creation of more things in this moment?
I think that I have to report from the other side. I think that I have to experience in the knowingness of what I have now, of who I am here, the understanding of the limitations of time to be on this planet, to experience things that like it's precious and it's quick as fuck. And I have to report to you once I know what it feels like to not be in this cycle and in the fashion cycle and in the pressure of it, of what it meant also to answer to something that at my core, like I didn't believe in that. Like every season I've got to make sure I fill these racks so that so that department stores buy me and this happens and I make these margins. The real root of it, I'm an artist, and I like finally can actually say that and not feel like because I was a little bit in the shame of the commercial side of what I did. But if I really can say I know myself, then I know that is what I am. And now it's like, well, what you are an artist, Mara. So now what do you say? Like you don't have to answer to all these different demands.
So it's so incredible, and I just want to like hear a little bit more about like the inner process to the decision, because I know that it's just so hard for most people to listen to that voice and to have the bravery to listen to that voice above all the pressure. And you had, I'm sure, a lot of pressure.
So much.
A lot of people relying on you.
So many people saying,
you're employing
don't
people. You're there's just I imagine there's a lot of pressure, and even separate from the societal messaging.
Oh, yeah, maybe
And the judgment around like giving up.
Oh yeah.
There's just so much you're up against in making a decision like this.
Oh, no,
and
I
I'm
wanted to
curious
throw
what
And people are like,
puke.
I'm curious what that was like. Like, was there like was it every day?
It was
this voice?
so hard.
Was it,
It's exactly what you're saying. There was nothing that like felt, oh, this feels. I've never cried more in my life. Like I was like, wow, this is such an interesting introduction, like to this depth of my emotions, because I sob all the time. It was kind of a gift to be able to access that much emotional release, because I've never considered myself like I'm a very compassionate feeling and someone who can see deeply into things, but I wouldn't, no one would describe me as like an overtly emotional person, but through this experience I became that, which was such a gift also to meet those parts, because it was so hard. It was so like, I think about my husband and what he's sat next to me through and what he's witnessed and what he's held me through is like, is so extraordinary, because it was like all of it, the insecurity, the second guessing of it, what am I doing this? I'm surrounded by incredibly strong, intelligent people, and for a long time, I felt like I didn't want to let them down. I have a team who believed in it. We're like, we can do this, we can figure it out, we can do it, no, we've got this. Be like, okay. Okay, all right, yes, we've got it. But I think the deepest part inside was like, let go. Like you'll know what to do. It will figure itself out. But that's a very hard thing to actually like listen to and trust. And now as I look at it with a little bit of hindsight and a little, because it's a little bit, I got through the really hard part of this.
what did that look like?
Getting through the hard part.
What did the hard part look like?
The hard part was like all the things I talked about, the insecurity, like the giving up the thing that gave me life, like letting go of my like oxygen tank, because again, letting go of like who you think you are, or why you think people love you, or why you think you matter, why you're important in the world. Why you're actually seen and exist, and like the rarity to have it at the level that I was able to like achieve. Like I achieved it.
Like
and
you won the award,
I got,
the CFDA.
Sure, even that. Like there was such like, there's humor in it a little bit, like because I laugh like thinking about just like when I got the call for that, it was in the summer, and I hadn't come to the decision. I didn't come to this decision until January. I made the decision on like January 20 something. It was really hard. It was like all the of it leading up to it. And I got the call about the award, and I was like, what? And laughing on the phone, I was like, so you mean I should stay in business till November, like to receive it? And they were like, yeah, you should stay in business to receive it.
But I was
like, I'm not joking, because like this is like taking everything. And I did, obviously. I stayed in business. But even receiving it that day, I was like, I like cried in the bathroom of that, because I was just like, this is so funny and hard, and like here we are like awarding something that is not ultimately even being supported, and like there is so much contradiction in all of this, and it isn't that I'm not grateful for it, and I think we should be recognizing people in the industry that are trying to change things and do things better. So it isn't like an FU or anything like that, but it's more of just a funny experience.
The irony.
A bit of it.
Yeah.
Like laughing, like it cost money to buy the tickets to go to the award show. Like besides like the guests I was bringing, and I was like, oh, well, I can't afford them. So it's okay. I'll just bring the free ticket. And I just think it's such an individual journey. And it was also funny, like to let that be a marking of an ending too. Like kind of an interesting way to go out.
Well, amazing, beautiful.
Like oh, thank you. And with that, you know, and I've been saying I'd rather, you know, leave the party while the party is still good, because you see how quickly parties get weird, and you don't want to be that guy like hanging out, you know, afterwards. And I feel right now too that like this has been such great timing, like watching everyone in love and in joy and in celebration of what these pieces and what this brand has done. Like the party's beautiful, and
So
like
pretty.
this is when I want to go.
That is really good advice. That's really good. Yeah.
It can go downhill real quick.
What was the day of the decision? Like,
Yeah, I was
what
going to
did-
ask that
yeah.
too.
Well,
Where were you?
Was she like on psychedelics? Is that what you were
no,
gonna
well, no, but there's so much. I mean, a lot of the time. I mean, this. I will say that any of the time that I spent in working with the plants these past few years have been all about this. They've been about like knuckling, like like crying in the grief of it. How do I fix this? Like, why does this hurt? Why, you know? And it's just like putting me exactly where I need to be. Like, you're, you know, my theory with, not mine alone, but it'll meet you wherever you are. Like if you're working in that space, if you're working in those, in that type of modality, everything meets you where you are. So whatever you're doing, but if you're working with psychedelics, they are going to meet you where you are. You know, you're not running away.
You're
not going to be able to
turn away.
bypass the reality of your, you know, existence and what you're going through. It's going to amplify it, and it's going to bring you maybe to a different perspective of it, or it's going to walk you to the backside to see it from another view. And that's what's so beautiful. Or it's going to bring you into the release or into the forgiveness that you need in order to let go, you know, and the self-forgiveness or the self-compassion.
I love that you said forgiveness to yourself. Like, I think, what do you mean by that exactly?
I you know, again, if you're going to talk about the psychedelics part, I spent so much time in that space going, in different times just being like, I'm so sorry, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like weeping, apologizing to my team, apologizing to you, to everyone that I've been able to show up for and love through what I've done, or the people that I employed, the web of, you know, the supply chain that's been connected to this work and to receiving those orders, and what it means to stop something like that. And so I just spent, you know, it wasn't multiple whenever I would meet Source in that way, it was never without a portion of it being in like, oh, please forgive me, I'm so sorry. And then when you're in that space, this beautiful thing shows up, the grace appears, that says, I forgive you, I love you, I forgive you, I love you. Like it transforms itself from please forgive me to I forgive you, I love you, like to this grace of
that you're part of something
that you
so
are,
much bigger.
and that you've never, you know, it's always been love, and that there's nothing to apologize for. Like
everything's inside of love. Being true to yourself is the power of that overpowers everything. Like it's just,
yeah, definitely. But it's not it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
So I will also just acknowledge anybody who's going through any version of this, whether it's like closing a fashion brand of 24 years, or moving on from any part of your life that's held you in, whether it was true or projected safety or identity, how hard it is, and that I'm, you know, I get it, and I'm with you, and I understand like what it takes to trust and to do that, and even to get to learn that through this, I'm already, no matter what is next, Mara, what's next? What are you going to do next? No matter what is next, just getting this next lesson of compassion for myself that can now be turned out for other people that are doing something that is so fucking hard. already I won.
It's like a shedding. You're shedding an old self. Like for anyone that's listening, or you can relate. This is relatable on what anyone is going through in terms of just moving into a new self and from an old self, and like, or just letting go old versions of yourself.
Yeah, and being in the in-between of it too. Like just okay with the in-between.
The
right. Like this isn't, there's not another branch. And sometimes you have to do things before the other branch is secured in your hand, right? You have to let go of the other one.
So we don't know what's next in general, but did you bring an outfit that reflects maybe a little bit where you're heading or what you're feeling?
I want to put the emphasis because I think that there's so much, like we're gripping so much to the future and what is this word next. And I just want to take a minute and put the emphasis on this moment right now. Like right now, like what does it feel like right now? Like trust me, we're gonna have a million nexts. There's no world that we don't get to the next. But it's just like, okay, how about like, I'm gonna put something on that reflects not what's next, but is exactly true to what's right now.
Well, okay. Where is it? Did you bring it up? Your clothes are in.
Oh, okay. You can come in.
It's okay. Whatever.
Okay.
Beautiful. Matcha.
Hey, come on. You wanna come?
Oh,
yes. Are you gonna stay? You're gonna stay? No.
Oh, she's very squirmy and indecisive, like me.
Just do it then. Just do it. Let's do this. Yeah.
I do love the uniform and the all white and like just
I love
the
white.
belt, the same belt that you wear with everything.
I wear it with everything.
Where's that belt from?
It's vintage. I have a good belt collection, but I tend to wear this one all the time. And people are like, "Where's the belt?" I'm like, "Vintage." And white. I always come back to white.
And what does it say about now?
It's open, it's free, it's clear. The potential exists within it. It's a reflection of everything.
Okay, a few final questions.
Yeah.
What does success mean to you?
I think probably one version of it is getting to a point where you really know who you are. And you really love who that is, because again, we have 15 minutes on this ride, and to be able to get to that knowingness, I think it's rare, actually. I think it's really rare. It's not a given that everybody gets to know who they truly are while they're alive and gets to love that version. Like, it's crazy that it's rare, right?
It is it's crazy so inside out. Talk rare. About inside out.
So to have that and to get to that, like, what could be a higher success than that?
I mean, I don't want to pass over what you said. I think we just need to emphasize within this era of, capitalism being what it is and social media and everything, just how little is emphasized in terms of like in a lifetime actually knowing who you are. Like, why aren't we taught that from the minute we go to school or the minute we're born from our parents? Is like, the only thing you need to do is know who you are and don't change a thing about you.
Because I think it works against the system for people to truly know who they are, because the system was built for people to plug into it and work for it. And the more you really know who you are, the more you'll say no thank you to that system, and the system falls apart.
It's an act of rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say is your wildest dream? It could be like for yourself, for the world, anything that comes to mind.
Oh, geez. No biggie.
No biggie.
I don't know. I pray for just ease and kindness and peace on all of us right now. Oh my God. Like a gentle wave of recovery and compassion for the entire planet and in all of its, living forms right now. There's so much grief and there's so much struggle and there's so much pain being experienced at this time, at all times. And so my greatest dream or wish would be to have a relief and, a time of gentleness on all of us.
Beautiful. And lastly, what would you tell little Mara? What would you,
Marita.
Marita. What would you tell?
What do you tell her? Because you talk to her.
Little
all the time.
Marita to never change about who she is.
I just tell her, I love you so much. I love you. I love you. Before I go to bed at night, it's the last thing I say. I love you so much, Marita. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And through this thing, too, through what it's taken to get myself over this, to do this fucking thing, I have had to talk to her consistently. When like I get that insecure bite, or after I talk to 15 people at a sample sale that are like, I'm so sad that you're not going to do this anymore. What are you going to do? And I know it's all love, and I get it. It's such love. And I know that, I'll be sad not to hear that maybe in 6 months where I'm like, where is everybody? Crickets? I don't think it'll be that, but who knows? I get in the car and I go, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Keep going. I tell her to keep going.
I do that, a lot of that too.
You got to do it.
So beautiful.
That is so beautiful.
It's not going to be crickets.
And it works.
Well, thank you so much. It's so deeply like resonant to hear your whole journey, and I just think like we can't hear enough about someone's process to like listening to their own intuition and voice. And as one of the people that is sad, I'm also just like really excited.
Thank you.
And so grateful for what you've already, like, you don't need to contribute more clothes to I mean, I have been, I've been taking every last bit of it.
I think that's the point.
But you've contributed enough to,
I think that's the point.
like you've done enough.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for all of it. Thank you for being with me through it. Thank you for seeing yourself in it. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just so grateful to you for your honesty and all of the love that you have poured into the world. And I have absolutely no doubt that it's going to be, whatever it is, whatever happens, that it's going to be very magnificent and beautiful, and you are going to be the happiest you've ever been. That's I feel that, whatever it is, even if you're sitting with the trees and the crickets.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, and also of me and my mom processing our takeaways from the interview and more, you can do so by heading over to the Don't Change a Thing podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new episodes of Don't Change a Thing every Thursday. And please, we would love to hear your thoughts on this episode in the comments below. And if you were inspired by what you heard today and think someone that you know would be impacted by Mara's story, we would be so grateful if you shared this episode with any of your friends.
If you're interested in more inspiring and empowering content from us, please sign up for our newsletter at StyleLikeU.com.